Welcome to The Lesson Plan, the podcast where we take a deep dive into what students are learning in Denver Public Schools classrooms and how DPS is preparing them to be successful adults. I'm your host, Nicole Brady, Communications and Community Engagement Manager with DPS. And today we're tackling a topic that is a big one. It's come up in every discussion, in fact, that we've had on this podcast so far: artificial intelligence. It touches so many facets of education right now. And my guest today is DPS's lead AI instructional specialist, Peracchia. Thank you so much for being here, Kaylee.
Absolutely. I'm excited to speak with you today.
Yeah. We've talked a lot lately. There's been a lot going on with AI.
Yeah.
It's a good time to have the conversation. Just last month, the district announced it would block access to ChatGPT for students on district devices, among other things because of concerns about expanding adult content on ChatGPT and enabling some group chat features. So we'll touch a little more on that later, but we're going to get a lot deeper than just chatbots today. Kaylee, we want to talk a little more about what DPS students are doing in the classroom, how they're using AI in a range of ways, and how they're learning to use it responsibly and really learn that AI literacy component. So let's start by talking about what AI is, because a lot of people just think of the chatbots, ChatGPT, the large language models. How do you distinguish kind of what is and what isn't AI?
Sure, yeah. So AI is a big umbrella term, right, for technology that's really ubiquitous around us in our everyday lives. And that's why we're really trying to support our students in understanding how AI is integrated into everyday technologies, but also how to navigate using specific types of AI, like large language models for a chatbot, say. But we also are using AI in ways, and we have been using them for decades in education, in ways like translation, speech to text, text to speech, modifications in the moment for student decision making with their curriculum and questioning. So really, AI has been in education, but we're talking about it more now because of the applications of chatbots in classrooms.
Yeah, so maybe it's hard to even pinpoint when AI first arrived in DPS, but could you talk about how the district has really started to take an intentional approach to bringing in new applications of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, in DPS, we're trying to take a community-centered approach. So grounding all of our decision-making in what teachers are asking for and what teachers are noticing when they're integrating AI into their classroom. So we started really slow in 2023, 2024, having teachers pilot tools that we knew were safe in the classroom that have signed and gone through our DPA process and have gotten our on our academic technology menu. They are available for our teachers to use. So we started with the tools that we knew were safe. And then we had teachers just start to use it for their own planning and coaching for their instruction, and seeing then how that can work on the student side. So we would start with a small group of teachers, pilot some things, doing design-based research, see what worked and what didn't work in the classroom before then we would expand out to recommend to the rest of the teachers in the district.
Interesting. And what are the main applications the district is using right now?
So 2 approved tools for both staff and students that we are recommending in our trainings and in classrooms are Magic School and Canva.
Okay.
For staff use, we do have also Gemini and Notebook LM that is available for staff too.
Gemini is somewhat the Google version of ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And we really do love Notebook LM for staff because it's all contained by our knowledge systems. So if we really want to make sure that all of our outputs for AI are aligned to DPS standards for high quality instruction and culturally and linguistically sustaining pedagogy, then we know if we are putting in our own information, then the output will be guided by our vision.
Yes, because that's how these large language models learn, is what they're trained on. So
Exactly.
if you're trained on DPS speak, then that's what you know.
Exactly. And that's also why we chose Magic School as a platform, because the large language model that it's trained on has safe parameters for both of our students and staff to be interacting with AI. Not only does it house our data in a safe space where it's not informing the model, but all of the interactions with the chatbot themselves can be ensured that they have a safe interaction. So if students might be challenging the chatbot with some questionable content, or even trying to get off topic from what they're doing in class, the chatbot will redirect them in a kind of teacher way back to an appropriate conversation.
Kaylee, the district has an AI handbook that has recommendations for how students and teachers should be using AI in the classroom. Yep. So you talked about Magic School, Gemini, Canva, some of these ways, some of these large applications that are being used. Can you talk a little bit about what is happening in a classroom when a student is using maybe the chatbot feature of one of these apps?
Yeah, so when we're thinking about student use with AI tools in the classroom, we really just ground it in what we know is good pedagogy. So we want our students, when they're using AI chatbots, to not just be engaging one-on-one with a technology device in a transactional way, but we really want to push them towards using technology to transform their learning experience, where they're now better able to collaborate with the peers around them. They're able to bring their imaginations to life by creating content in collaboration with the AI chatbot. They're even able to get better access to the language and content that the teacher is putting in front of all of the students in the classroom because of the in-the-moment supports and feedback that the AI tool is programmed to give them. So really, we're just trying to elevate the learning experience for what we already know is good teaching and learning.
I was able to get into a classroom at Morey Middle School earlier this school year where they are doing the EDIA pilot.
Sure, yeah.
So this is another application, but it is still in the pilot phase. Is that right?
Yeah. EDIA is, so it's a math integrated AI tool. So it's working alongside of our math curriculum for our secondary students. And we are just piloting it in a few classrooms right now, again, to see if that's how we'd like to move forward in opening access to the rest of the district. So a student working alongside of EDIA in their math classroom will be solving a math problem live, and the AI tool is able to see the system of thinking of the student and give them live feedback based on their problem solving. So they're also not only giving live feedback, but it's generating different question sets based on the access that students have to the content already. So if a student is ready for advancement, and we know that a lot of students in our classrooms might really need supports on both sides of the margins of learning, so it can push some of our students to calculus level mathematics while also supporting students that may need a third grade level refresher.
Yeah, that's excellent that it allows students within the same classroom to then kind of work at their own pace.
Yes.
And then what I saw during that session and using that EDIA as a pilot was that the teacher was still going around the classroom and helping students when they got stuck on a problem, just like they would in any classroom. But some of the students were able to, instead of just waiting for the teacher, they were able to ask the chatbot, can you help me find another way to solve this? And then it would give them that little bit of a prompt, pretty much the same thing a teacher would give them.
100%, yeah. So I named kind of like what we would expect for student learning to be with AI in the classroom, but the teacher moves are really important to name as well, that a teacher is active monitoring just like they would with regular instruction, but they're now able to get better insight into the questions that students have and the roadblocks where students are getting stuck and how the AI chatbot is supporting them around those roadblocks. A teacher wouldn't know that a student would be ready for calculus level math if the student didn't have access to imagine that far. So it's now pushing kind of the level of inquiry that our students are able to engage in the classroom, and teachers are not only able to active monitor, but they're able to adjust their instruction in the moment based on student interest and assets.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so they're getting all of that feedback. They're of course able to see everything the students are asking the chatbot. Obviously, you cannot ask just for the answer.
Correct,
we actually tried that when I was in there, and it said, I won't give you the answer. So do you think that a lot of these apps are designed to make teaching a little bit not easier, but give teachers back some of that time that they often spend in lesson planning or in differentiating lessons for different groups of students. I mean, we consistently hear teachers don't have enough time, and especially planning time, especially non-teaching time.
Yeah.
Do some of these apps save that kind of time?
Teacher burnout is so real. And I would like to quote a teacher, one of our actually highest scoring literacy MGP teachers up at Denver Green School Northfield, who said, I wouldn't be teaching today still if it weren't for Magic School. And
Wow.
a teacher that is highly effective in their classroom, that knows all the right moves to make, knows that this is a transformative tool for them because they have all of these ideas and they have all these expectations for what they know is effective instruction, but they don't have the time in the day to make personalized learning plans for every student, but they want to. They want to engage in these interactive, multimodal, project-based learning experiences, but it takes time and resources to do that.
Yep.
But when they have a thought partner or even a cognitive coach with AI, and really we are pushing a teacher using AI not to just create a lesson plan. We have our expert specialists that have done that. We paid for curriculum. We want our AI to be used as a capacity builder and moving our teachers' practice in the direction that they would ultimately like to see it moved.
When this first got a lot of attention a few years ago, especially ChatGPT, a lot of people just immediately said, oh, students are going to use this to cheat. They'll use it at home. They can, if they can use it in the classroom, they'll use it that way.
Sure.
Obviously, the classroom functions have more safeguards on them, but at home, students will use AI as well. That is not something DPS sees as a problem as long as they're using it ethically. So how does the district sort of educate students about how to use it ethically, and maybe how do they monitor that so that there's not cheating?
Sure, yeah. And I think as a district, really promoting this idea that those who know how to use technology are often those who are imagining and building our future. And if we're not giving students the access to imagine alongside of the tools that we know are going to be so crucial for their future development, we don't want to preclude that access to them. So how do we do that safely, appropriately, and ethically? Really, it's just starting to navigate conversations with students and position our teachers as learners alongside of them to say, hey, we're navigating this new terrain of education with AI integrated together. What does appropriate use look like? We're no longer dealing with cheating as a binary of yes or no, you got caught, you cheated. But instead now we're seeing it as a spectrum of to what extent are you using technology to support your final response or your final product, and how do we establish clear boundaries and guidelines for our students to say, for this exit ticket today, absolutely no AI use. I want to see what you learned from the notes that you took in class. Or for tomorrow's due now, you can use AI to brainstorm some ideas, but then let's close our computers and you're going to do the rest of the assignment on paper. So having a balance and clear expectations for students to have an equal playing field for everybody, and also have students feel supported in their learning, that it's not a gotcha, but they're actually having their skills intentionally built to use these tools in support of their learning.
So inappropriate way to use AI would be to say, write this paper for me and turn in that paper. But an appropriate use might be, what are some questions you can ask me about the book I just read? That's where I see AI as being more appropriately used, is to give students prompts to help them think critically.
Absolutely. So Magic School being used as a tool to unravel these deeper ideas that students have, and it serves as a thought partner to give them the language to actually express, these ideas that they have. We're not trying to kind of mute student expression and voice by replacing essay writing with AI or having students solely listen to AI feedback. We want our students to have an active voice and agency in the ideas that they're producing and sharing with one another.
Very, very good. How do you approach equity with AI? Because it occurs to me that even the internet is something that is still not fully equitable around society.
Yeah.
Some students have better Wi-Fi, some students have faster speed internet than others. Every student in DPS has access to devices, but how do you make sure that they're all getting the equal access to AI?
Yeah, so really I think the first step that I'm really excited about is that our district is starting a larger governance structure. So we have all stakeholders across the district bought in and rowing in the same direction, because part of equitable access is ensuring a consistent implementation of our DPS AI culture in schools, meaning staff and students have basic AI literacy and they have access to tools to support their learning, because we do not want access to AI or knowledge about AI literacy to look different from one school to another. We often say on the academic side of things, we like to dismantle the predictability of which students have access to resources and which students do not. So I would love for you to walk into any DPS building and see the similar expectations of, AI literacy for all learners.
Excellent. The pilots, of course, are limited to certain schools for that pilot period, but then eventually the goal would be to roll those out equitably.
Yes, exactly. And how do we make this an inclusive and distributive effort where school building leaders are using their own leadership approach to do this work, but they're still rowing in the same direction as the district? We're not telling you exactly what to believe or how to use AI, but we should all have the same expectations and language around supporting our students in this new wave of education.
And I think that's really important, because you could certainly have a teacher who is more excited about it and a teacher who is less excited about it.
Absolutely, and that's okay, And having that varied spectrum of opinions is what makes education such a fun place to be in, and that's where learning happens. There's not one right opinion or perspective on how AI should be used in education, and when we're able to hear that spectrum, that's when we really are able to grapple with, okay, what do we really need to hold sacred in education, and what can we maybe start to think about using for AI support?
I think that's a great segue into the conference that the district just held at the end of 2025. Its first ever tech conference. This one focused on AI, a student tech conference, I should say. So about 100 students, high school age students, were able to come and look at really cool apps that you could use in AI, from healthcare to music. They also had some really interesting discussions about ethically using AI and maybe some of the dangers. How did you put this conference together, first off? Because there were a lot of partners involved, I know.
So I started by opening up Magic School and asking how to make this happen. Really, though, did collaborate with just starting with an idea and seeing how to actually plan this larger picture into action. So our first student-centered tech conference for DPS was framed around the theme of imagining more just and inclusive futures with AI. Because not only do we want to educate our students on how to use AI technologies, but we want our DPS students to be working towards a more just and inclusive future with AI, because we know right now that too few people have a voice in determining what technologies are created and integrated into our everyday lives. And we want to open up that opportunity for our DPS students to imagine themselves in that space. So that was the basis of the tech conference. And from there, we had a kickoff session. We had breakout rooms where they were able to engage with MergeCube AI to do a healthcare simulation. They were doing music creation and DJing, talking about sustainability and really serious conversations. And then we all were able to congregate as a whole group for a whole group an innovation challenge. And students were able to pinpoint a problem in their everyday lives that they would want to see solved, and figuring out how to design an AI technology to solve that issue and work towards a more just and inclusive future for everybody in the room.
Very cool.
But also, huge highlight, Adil Khan, the owner of Magic School, came and was a keynote speaker of our student-centered tech conference. So not only were students able to see someone that was a former Denver principal start their own tech company and inspire them to be entrepreneurs, but he was fielding questions from them and being held to account on issues like sustainability, and even named us as a company we should be having our engineers look into this, and our designers. So hearing our students give feedback to tech companies is truly one of our biggest dreams that we couldn't imagine actually coming into fruition.
Yeah, and in case we didn't point it out earlier, Magic School, a Denver company. They're right here.
Absolutely.
And they're one of the players in AI that's doing it right. with education in mind, with safety in mind. It's the main reason DPS has partnered with them.
Absolutely, yeah. So not only was it far and away the platform that our teachers and our pilots wanted us to go with, we went through an RFP process. It passed all of our checkpoints that we were looking for, but they're a local company and they are willing to partner with us in, I would say, a transformative way, where we're meeting on a weekly basis. They're hearing our feedback on what's going well, and they're asking us to push their company design and supporting how then they're supporting other districts. And seeing Denver almost as a lighthouse city for how AI is being used responsibly, safely, and equitably in schools.
So back to the tech conference, one of the really cool moments that I got to see there was a panel where students from the Denver School of Arts debate team got a chance to ask questions of DPS leadership. Dr. Tony Smith, our deputy superintendent, was there. Billy Sayers, who is the lead for STEAM in the district, was there, and students really engaged in a very thoughtful conversation with them about where AI is going, some of the pitfalls potentially, the environmental impact. They really had some very critical questions to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially students coming from Denver School of the Arts had a lot of concerns around replacement of creativity and critical thinking. Also, sustainability was huge too. They came in with very specific pieces of evidence from our strategic roadmap as a district around our sustainability goals and said, if you're promising this, how are we actually working towards that with our implementation? And maybe the adults in the room didn't quite have the answer for them, but they now know that that is something that they need to be keeping into consideration as they're making their decisions. And for some context, after that sustainability question was posed, a deal from Magic School started thinking about what we call token reduction technology and partnering with their engineers to put almost like a calorie count for how much energy usage each inquiry with a chatbot is yielding.
Great to point out in case people aren't aware that the concerns about energy use when you use AI, those are some pretty significant concerns. These are massive, data houses that are processing all this information, and so it does use a lot of energy. That's fascinating. The idea that we could have a little calorie count running across our screen.
And I think you named something that's really important that our students are picking up on. That AI is not just a tool in the classroom, but it's a socio-technical system that has serious implications in our everyday lives. You mentioned data centers, and we're having a data center being built right in North Denver in a historically redlined neighborhood. And that correlation is not by happenstance, and our students are aware of these inequities. So beyond how are we using it in the classroom, they want to have an active voice and be agents of change in how technology is being built writ large.
Yeah, I loved their questions about sustainability. I loved, as you point out, that School of Arts students would obviously be concerned about AI replacing artistic creation and expression. They also don't want it replacing them in the workforce. They want to make sure that they have jobs in the future. But I think that's a good segue into how DPS is preparing students for a world where AI will exist in some way. And so it kind of comes back to that idea that if you don't know about AI, you might be behind in terms of workforce preparedness.
Yeah, we like to say that our kindergartners joining us in 2025 are graduating in 2037 and retiring in 2086. So we don't know the technology that is going to be introduced to them even next year. So we do not want to serve as a barrier to them keeping up with, the evolution of technology and supportive learning. But we also want to make sure that we're there to guide them in this evolution so they have a safe and reputable thought partner on what this means for their learning.
Kaylee, how often would you say your team meets to discuss something new that you've seen out there? I don't know if companies are actively targeting DPS and saying we want to partner with you, we want to do more.
Yeah.
How is that going?
So I would say internally, our ed tech team, we meet bi-weekly and AI is always a topic of conversation, but we also have an ongoing group chat called AI Everything where we have 10 bleeps a day, like we're constantly chatting about it. But now this work, and what I'm really happy about is this work is expanding to conversations with every team, whether it's in academics or in other departments like your own in communications. So I wouldn't say there's just one meeting a week. It's constant meetings and touch points with different departments. But our larger governance board, and I'm really excited about this, is going to have a larger C-level cabinet meeting quarterly, and then smaller governance and steering committees meeting bi-weekly and monthly to move this work forward in each of those respective departments. So it's not just ed tech or not just the Department of Technology, our DOTS team, owning this work anymore, but really we're trying to truly make it inclusive and community driven. So having this larger governance structure really gives space for us to meet and talk about these important issues.
Yeah, excellent. And back to the beginning of the podcast when we mentioned that recently DPS did decide to block access to ChatGPT for students on DPS devices. This goes back to the fact that the district is being very intentional, not necessarily promoting one app or another. It's out there. We know it's out there. We know students are using it at home. But the district has done a lot of work to make sure the uses that students are finding in the classrooms have been vetted, they're safe, privacy is accounted for, all of those things. And so I know that any new application of this that comes on board will receive that same treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, we're trying to codify that approval and disapproval process. We already have really strict regulations for accessibility, and soon we will have an AI law come into place for the state of Colorado to determine what tools are safe for students. But we already have a rigorous technology approval process. So that's our first stop. And we do recommend specific tools. We want our students and our teachers using Magic School because we know that's the safe place for them to be engaging with AI.
Excellent. Want to point out to people that you can access the DPS handbook on AI in schools just by searching online for DPS AI handbook. That was the easiest way, but I encourage everyone to take a look at that resource there. It really lays out the uses for teachers, the uses for students, suggested ways to use it. And maybe we'll leave it with that, because I think families probably have some questions still. They're not always involved every day, intently on what the kids are doing every day in school. I know I'm not with my kids. So maybe leave us with some thoughts for families about how students can appropriately and effectively use AI right now.
Yeah, I would say engage them in conversation and just be an active listener. Just start by listening and go in with a judgment-free lens, because students won't actually give you, your kids won't actually give you the true insight into what they're doing if they feel like there's any judgment. So go in as a listener and then go in with your own kind of moral and ethical compass on what you believe is good use of technology. Guide your students with that just like you would with any other technology. It's really important for our students to know a technology well enough that they're able to navigate what they know as moral and ethical moves in their life and use that in line with their AI.
I love that advice. It's very similar to how you guide them on the use of any other technology or what your stance is on screen time. Parents should probably develop somewhat of a stance on how they want their children using AI. My daughter, a few weeks ago, said, she was doing her math homework and she said, "Oh, I've got this problem. I'm asking ChatGPT," and I freaked out. I said, "No, what? You're asking ChatGPT for?" She's like, "No, Mom, I'm asking it to create some sample problems for me so I can practice this for the test." So I sat down with her and we did it together. It was amazing. I thought, wow, I would have loved to have this, have right there the ability to create math problems for myself. And now they can do that. Yeah.
But for you as a parent, would you have been able to support your daughter in that math exploration? Would you have even known what she was confused about if you didn't have that insight with that technology? That's what I find fascinating for parents. They're now able to take what students are learning in the class, and despite what they were able to complete in their own educational trajectories, have a better support system for them.
Absolutely. No, you're right. There's no way I could have come up with the problem to give her.
Absolutely not.
Nor would I have been able to solve that problem.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, she's 7th grade, but the math is already getting to where I'm like, I don't really remember.
And that's okay to admit.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank you. So yes, it's a great way that you can sit down with your student at home, talk about AI together, use it effectively together, and yeah, keep those conversations going. So.
Yeah.
Kaylee, thank you so much for having.
Absolutely. This was great, Nicole. Thank you.
We will be talking a lot more with you and with other members of leadership, other teachers. AI is going to continue to be a topic on this program, so we will have other great topics coming up as well. Be sure to subscribe to the DPS podcast on your favorite app, and thank you so much for listening.